Hello and welcome to Adobe Max 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in to Adobe Live Meet the Speaker series. If you haven't yet subscribed to our new Adobe Live YouTube channel, please do that to stay up to date on all the latest videos and stay in touch with our community. If we haven't met yet, I am Jordan Danae Ellis. I'm the community manager for Adobe Express, and I am so excited to introduce our special guest, Charmaine Jennings. Charmaine, will you introduce yourself, what you do, your brand, all of that to people who don't know you yet?
My name is Charmaine Jennings. I am the owner of Strategic Charm Boutique, which is a digital marketing agency. We specialize a lot in social media marketing, and we do a little bit of blog writing, email campaigns, and things like that.
Yeah. We also are taking questions, so hello to the chat. Hi, Bliss, Gareth, Wade, Tom, Cody. If you have questions for Charmaine, drop them in the chat and we'll answer them throughout and at the end. But my first question is, for folks who are just starting their brand, just starting to think about content strategy, what are your tips for when you're working with someone who is literally just beginning? Like, where do you tell people to start?
If you're really just beginning, really focus on writing out a content strategy based on who your target audience is. That's a huge one. I know it seems like it's an obvious thing, but your target audience isn't everyone, right? Just because you sell a candy bar that everyone can eat, it doesn't mean everyone is your potential customer. So think about who your target audience is, think about how you want to connect with them beyond just selling your product or your service, and think about other content you can mix in there that's not just product or service based. How else can they get to know you personally and on a bit of a deeper level?
That's awesome. I feel like, thinking about actually honing in is one of the tips for beginners, because like, it's really easy to be like, oh, everyone could use this.
Exactly.
Let's talk to everyone.
Exactly. No, we really need to think about, again, what you're offering, because although we like to think that we're all unique, and we are in our own right, but there's a lot of other people who are likely doing something similar to what you're already doing, right? So what is separating you from everyone else, and what makes you and your brand unique? What makes your product unique, and how can you connect with your audience more personally?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a great tip for beginners, but I wanted to ask, for people watching who like have already started working on their content strategy, maybe already have a brand, but they like want to level it up, or are just looking for some tips to like make what they're doing better. Yeah. What are some of your tips for folks who are already in the works, but they just like want to boost it a little bit?
Absolutely. Honestly, the first thing I'll say is actually go back to your strategy. A lot of people make that strategy and just keep it there for like a year or two or even longer and forget to go back and update it, because things change, social media changes, trends change, businesses change, and you want to make sure you're keeping up with what's going on around the world. That's the first thing you want to do. The second thing I recommend if you're trying to level up is to focus a lot on collaboration. There's so many Exactly. I love it, honestly. Collaborating with other entrepreneurs, other creatives makes me feel re-inspired, more motivated, and gives me so many cool ideas, right? You don't have to do everything by yourself. Once you feel a bit more established and you know kind of what direction you want to go, open yourself up to other people who are either doing something similar or completely different, and figure out how you guys can combine your skills and your efforts to make something amazing.
I want to talk about that just a little bit more, because collaborating, I feel like, is this magical piece that not everyone thinks about.
Right.
Like, I mean, for one, tools literally have collaborating options. Like on Instagram and different social media feeds, you can like collaborate posts. But if someone is like, okay, I want to collaborate, that's intimidating. Like, where do we start? Do you have any tips, or like maybe some things you have done that you could use as an example for collaborating?
Yeah, if you're thinking about forming collaboration, I suggest starting to do your research first, right? So whether it's on Instagram or a different social media platform, follow some people you think have similar values or goals or products or whatever it is. Start to engage with them on their platform, build that relationship, and then ask for a collaboration opportunity. I get a lot of DMs and requests from people saying, hey, I want to work with this, or I want to work on this with you, but I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do.
Come with an idea too. Yeah. Like, I want to work with you. You think of what it is.
Exactly, right? You need to be ready with what you bring to the table.
Absolutely.
And you want to make sure your collaboration is mutually beneficial. So you might know what you want out of it, but think about what is going to help them in their business with their marketing and reach their goals as well.
Yes. We have some agreement in the chat. Bliss says don't get stale, and collaboration can bring in a breath of fresh air. That's so real. And Tom says we have different ideas that would help each other. So like, collaborating doesn't even have to always be a new project. It can just be like networking, brainstorming, talking to other people. Like literally what we're doing here now at Max, like talking to other creatives.
Absolutely. So like for me, in addition to the marketing agency, I have a community of women in business called Hustle and Charm. And we're all about collaboration and community over competition. And I remember someone asking me, hey, like, can I join your community? Because I'm a social media manager, you're a social media manager, and I don't want to step on your toes. I'm like, no. There's no stepping on toes. There is more than enough room for everyone, right?
Yes.
I can't serve every single client who wants social media services, right? So if you have something different that you bring to the table, or you just want to bounce ideas off one another, I'm happy to share my skills, my expertise, and see how we can work together and support one another.
I think that's such an important thing to think about too, because it does feel a little bit like you want to be precious with your brand.
Yeah.
But like you said, you literally can't help everyone.
Yeah.
So like, I even have some folks who do things similar to me, where when I don't have energy or time, like I know someone to send like clients to.
Exactly.
I think that's such a underused
It really,
strategy.
It really is. Again, there's more than enough room for everyone. And even if you're focusing on the same niche, the same audience, whatever it is, again, you're going to get a lot further with people than by yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat. How do you help weed out a flaky collaborative offer? Which I imagine you've had experience with. I know I sure have.
I've had a lot. Again, the first sign for me is someone who I know doesn't really know me, right? We've never really talked, we've never engaged, they don't know much about what I do.
Not even following
Not
you,
even,
which is
oh, that's the worst.
Rule number
Oh my
one,
God.
follow the person that you're
Exactly.
trying to work with at the very least.
Or they follow you that day, and then within 2 minutes they're like messaging saying, hey, we should work together. I'm like, no. So again, do your research, build some rapport with someone you're wanting to work with. And then also, again, don't just focus on what is going to benefit you, focus on how you're going to benefit the other person, right? So if someone's bringing a collaboration idea to you and it's all about what they need and what they want, what's going to work for them, you know that you're not top of mind and they're not going to be focused on your success from that collaboration as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about ways that you've done some of these strategies, but I'm just curious, like, of the tips that you give, I mean, that you're giving us right now, that you've given people you work with, because you run a brand too, so you need to use the tips that you give in your own brand. What are some of the ways that like you incorporate what you're talking about in your own strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, right now we also focus a lot on collaboration.
Yeah.
So we like to think about marketing beyond just like what we're posting on social media. So again, meeting people in person, we like to collaborate with people who are also wanting to teach workshops. So we might do something together where they're teaching about Pinterest and we're focusing on Instagram and things like that. So we really focus on that on our social media. And we love shouting people out. We love supporting people. We love introducing people. It's a good feeling for us. It makes other people feel good. And it's something we try to do all the time.
And
absolutely.
It's free.
Absolutely.
Like, you can do that. It doesn't cost anything. Like
exactly.
I think that's one of the most underused strategies. So thank you for
absolutely,
saying that.
Absolutely.
We also in the chat, Bliss says, please note I would give consideration to working with Charmaine based on the fact that she's rocking animal print. There's so much love for Charmaine's outfit in the chat.
Thank you.
Wade, I love. Hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but here's my number, so let's collaborate.
That's so cute. Perfect. I love animal print, so I rock it. I wore it on Monday actually, a different animal print dress. I loved it.
So shifting gears a little bit,
we're
talking about branding and strategy and content, but a huge part of content is like making things, and that can be really intimidating, I think, for folks without a design background or art background. I am not a professional designer. I have no design background at all. But it is like you're putting your work out there, and it can feel like you need a degree before you can like make things that other people look at.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, like, what is some of the advice that you give to people who like know they need to put things out, but they're nervous about actually doing it?
Yeah, so for myself, same. Like, I'm not I wouldn't call myself a graphic designer. That's not how I identify any skills that I have. However, when I use a platform like Adobe Express, I feel like a professional designer who's gone through years of extensive training. So if you're unfamiliar with what Adobe Express is, it's a platform where you can design really high quality, on-brand graphics for your social media without having to learn the ins and outs of a more complicated platform that takes more of a bit of a learning curve. So that's what we use for ourselves and for our clients. And a platform like that is really great because it helps us, again, look professional, keep things on brand, and helps us be way more efficient than trying to pretend we know how to, do intricate design work, which we don't.
Well, and I think there is kind of some, I don't know if baggage is the right word, but sort of like, there are even times I feel like people talk about using templates and like, well, I want to start from scratch though. Like, that's the real designing. And I love that, like, that's not the most important thing. Like, there aren't like rules to being a designer, whatever level you're at. is the level that works.
Exactly. And I'll never create anything from scratch, to be honest.
I
would never, because again, I
me.
don't trust myself to do that. But again, using a template is all about tweaking it so it makes it look like it's your own brand, and it makes it look more unique, right? So sometimes you see people with the same template across other platforms that don't really change it. You're like, okay, I recognize that template. But again, incorporate your brand colors. Use either brand photos or Adobe stock that is on brand for you. Use your own brand fonts, make it your own. Don't be afraid to move things within the template. It doesn't have to stay stationary. You can move the square over here, move that circle over there, and make it a bit more custom.
Yeah, and like you said, adding your own spin to it. Like, you can keep the backbone so you don't have to start from scratch, but like put your own twist, which I love.
Absolutely.
And Bliss in the chat says templates can be created and saved in Adobe Express. That's totally true. We have a question. How do you create your products but still always come back to the brief from the client? Oh, what do you do? What do you consider there? So like, because right, you have to take what your clients want and what they're saying their brand or strategy is, but also bring in your expertise and like your style. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we try to think objectively when it comes to different clients. Honestly, a lot of clients we work with are very much like, I don't know what to do. You do it all and let me know when it's done. Like that's
you have found your audience.
Exactly,
and that's it.
exactly. But we do have some clients who are a bit more established and do have, you know, their own brand guidelines, their own strategy that they want to have us tweak a little bit and implement. So we look at things objectively. Think about the knowledge and expertise that we have that we can use to complement what they're already doing. And we're not shy about letting people know that, hey, I know this is your strategy and it has been for the last year, and you think it's working, but it's not actually. Let me show you what we can do to make it a bit more elevated and to work better for what your goals are.
That's such a smart way to do it too. And I mean, you're obviously a pro at this, but it's a complicated situation to like take someone who thinks they know what they're doing. Obviously they're coming to you because they need help, but then delicately saying like, let me help you make this better.
Exactly. I think it's important to remember that you are the expert no matter how long you've been in your field. But again, be open to listening to new ideas and new ways of doing things as well, because you don't want to be so set in your ways that you can't be collaborative with your clients, right? So be open to that, but be able to, again, be confident and stand your ground when you know it's appropriate.
That's awesome. And yeah, chat, please feel free if you have any more questions. We have a branding strategy expert here, so feel free to use us. But I have another question for you. We mentioned Adobe Express, obviously one of my favorite things, the thing I work on all the time. But do you have any other favorite tools that you recommend to brands who are just working on their content strategy? Anything you like?
Absolutely. So for us, I actually just met some of the girls from the Later Media marketing team yesterday.
Yeah.
I love Later so much. And a lot of people think it's just a scheduling app. That's obviously what they're known for. But we use them as a huge resource for learning new things about industry trends for TikTok and Instagram, influencer marketing. So a lot of the times our team spends so much time going through all of their blogs because they are so detailed in a way that's simple to understand. So that's one of our main platforms that we go to. And then also, we're very simple. We love a Google Doc to go back and forth on written content and make notes for everyone who's working on the same project.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, because talking about resource, that just made me think. Your blog is full of resources. So I was just scrolling through and I was like, okay, I want to talk about this blog. But one of the things you posted recently was, it was like 5 mistakes not to make on social media. Is that correct? Or like, it was a list of like, you know, things that people
to try to avoid.
You've noticed, things to avoid. I was wondering if you could talk about some things to avoid, because obviously you gave a lot of great tips, and I also do think sometimes it is equally important to think about what not to do. So, like, there are some rules there.
Absolutely. Honestly, the biggest thing is to not buy followers. I don't care what your goals are or what your industry is. Do not buy social media. Exactly. It's not going to help you at all. You're going to have a fake audience. I remember I was working with one company who bought a whole bunch of followers, and I told her not to. I'm like, it's not going to help the brand, because now you have 12,000 followers and 4 people liking your content and nobody actually engaging with it in any other way. So like, everything is off, all the metrics are off, and you're not getting any real value. So for me, that's the number one thing we always tell people not to do. It's never going to be worth it. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say some other things too is to, yes, pay attention to industry trends and what's going on, but recognize not every trend is the right fit for you and your brand. So because people are like doing a TikTok dance, it doesn't mean you also have to do it. If it feels right and you want to try it and feel out how you can apply it to your brand, that's great, but don't feel obligated to try every single trend just because it's out there.
I love that a lot, and also it does, like, I don't keep up with trends as much as I shouldn't out myself like this. But to me, the strategy is always more important than the trend.
Absolutely.
Like trends are important, but I think that's such a good call out that like, if you're gonna, chasing trends is not the move. Like, you can think about them, you can incorporate them where they make sense, and it's not gonna look authentic if it's just like trend, and nothing holding the brand together.
That's exactly it. And I think you have to also recognize the difference between a trend and how platforms are shifting, right? So I wouldn't call Instagram Reels a trend because the platform is shifting to focusing on Reels, right? So yes, I would agree, if Instagram's your core platform, try and incorporate some Reels, but not every trending Reel is gonna be the right one for you to try.
That's such a good way to think about it. So yeah, like if the industry is shifting or like an entire movement is happening, that's very different than like this trending audio is the thing to focus on above all else.
Yeah.
We have a great question in the chat. One, Maria is here. Hello, Maria, and hi, Jacob.
Hi.
But we have a question. How do you cope with doing so many jobs and meeting every deadline? If you have a great answer to this, this is maybe one of the hardest things ever.
Outsource, honestly, that's the biggest thing. I did so many things on my own for so long, and I think it was fine for what it was, but the second I started hiring a team, I felt so much better, so much more efficient, and I can focus a lot better. So for me, like at the beginning of the pandemic, I wasn't sure how my business was gonna fare because I'm like, okay, if my clients are shutting their doors or scaling back, then they don't need me. Luckily, a lot of people had to shift to operating online and like, Charmaine, we don't have an online presence, what do we do? So I went from 5 monthly clients to 15 in a couple of weeks.
I'm so happy for you.
I was so happy, but I'm like, I can't do all that.
Right.
So I hired one social media manager on a subcontractor basis, gave her 5 clients, and then I saw it 10, so I'm like, oh, I gotta hire someone else. So I hired a second one, hired a third one, then I hired my mom as my admin assistant. So now we're 5 people tackling all the things.
I love you are not the only person, including me, who's called in family members when you need to. It's like, look, I just need help with this.
Right.
And that's such a good call too, because outsourcing is such a good move, and like it's kind of hard to like admit that you can't do everything. I feel like that's one of the biggest barriers to not outsourcing or not getting help is you're like, I got this, I just won't sleep for 3 weeks. Like that is not the move.
It's not the move. Don't be too proud to ask for help. But also a lot of people think that outsourcing means you're gonna lose money. Right? I've had friends who are not entrepreneurs and not in the space who are like, well, why would you hire people when you can keep more money for yourself? I'm like, no, the opposite is what's going to happen. The more people I have on my team, the more revenue we can generate for our business, and the more we can actually grow in the way that we want to, as opposed to keeping small and keeping everything to myself.
Yeah, and like you said, that is a strategy that not everyone utilizes because it does seem counterintuitive. It's like, keep all the money that you can.
Right.
That's
not how it works.
I know. Everyone needs to phone in a lifeline. You don't have to do it all. Yes, outsourcing helps increase productivity and frees up time. And it really does. Like, if it gives your brain more space to think big picture, sometimes it doesn't make sense to be spending all of your time like organizing your emails or like sending out things that someone else can help you with.
I've been at Max all week, like since Sunday, and you know, I can do that and still like work on client stuff, but it's nice to know that I have a team of 4 people who are still able to stay on top of things while I'm out here doing a different aspect of what we offer.
That's so smart. That's so great. I don't have that. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go home with so many emails I'm ignoring. Do as Charmaine does, not as I do. I have a question too. So we've talked about branding and content strategy. And I think probably most folks know like what a brand is or what a logo is. But I feel like branding is so much more than just like a set of colors and a logo.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk a little bit about someone who's like, okay, I have my logo, I have my brand. I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, for us, we don't even really focus on branding in that regard in terms of colors. Yes, we want to know what your brand colors are so we can make sure our visuals we create and express are on brand for you. But it's really about your brand values, what you value as a company or as an individual. It's really about what your messaging is beyond just what you offer, right? So for us, yes, we offer marketing services, but our focus is on women in business and how we want to give women the tools they need to excel in this space. That's our main goal. It's not to like create the best social media posts. It's to really elevate women in a way that we know best and how we can use our skills to do that, right? So think about what your values are, think about what you offer beyond just the benefits of your product and your service. And stay true to that. Stay true to your brand voice. It's okay to grow and change over the years, but you don't want to flip-flop every couple of weeks because people are going to lose connection with your brand and not know who you are and what you're about.
You might not have an answer to this, but I'm just curious. Do you have any tips for like, so I have written out like my brand, I have a personal side hustle. I've written out like my goal, and sometimes I have it on a piece of paper that is on my desk. Like, do you have any tips like that of like, or do you do anything like that to like keep your pillar top of mind?
Yeah, actually yesterday someone came up to me at Max because I was hosting a session yesterday, and I was broadcasting my laptop onto the screen for the slides, and on my desktop I have my 2022 vision board.
Yes.
So it has some personal and business goals on there, but it's on my desktop. Every time I open my computer, I see it. I keep it as a wallpaper on my phone, so my goals are always top of mind, whether it's personal or business.
Smart. I love that. Cody is asking, how did you originally discover that you wanted to do brand strategy? Because that's not usually the thing people like grow up on. I mean, I know it existed when we were kids, but I feel like the version of what you do now probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, when I was in grade 8, I went on a tour of a college in Winnipeg called Red River College, and they talked about a program called Creative Communications where you learn about marketing, advertising, journalism, and media production. And from that moment, I knew I wanted to get into that program. I thought I might go into journalism, but as the years went on and I got more interested in social media and how you can use it strategically, then marketing, social media, and branding became more of my focus and my passion.
That is awesome. So did you start like from then? You were like, okay, I know the direction I'm going, or did you have a little bit of a journey?
I had a bit of a journey.
Okay,
I had a journey.
Most people do. So
no, for sure. So I majored in public relations, which included marketing and advertising and things like that. And then I focused on event planning as my career for a couple of years. So I worked as a wedding planner. I planned galas and things like that. I moved to Alberta and did
fun.
It was fun. Also stressful, but really fun.
Yes.
And then when I started my business, I initially focused on event planning. Marketing was a small part of it, but because I was already in an event planner role, I figured it made sense to focus on that. It did not make sense because where I lived, it was a very small town, and I was the event planner there. And
so you were doing all the events.
Exactly. So I had a vision that people would like hire me and fly me around the world to do events. That didn't happen. So once I shifted and really niched down to social media marketing, that's where my brand started to really pick up, and I could actually turn this into, an actual business.
I think that's an important thing to talk about too, because sometimes pivoting, sometimes I feel like people, including me, have gotten hung up on like what's a pivot and what is like a wild whirlwind of like having no guide. So do you have any like thoughts about that, where like when you know like something's not working, you have to shift, versus like you said, staying steady enough to like have people know what you're doing?
For sure. I think it's important, depending on what your passions are and what you envision your life to look like, it's not always about having a major shift or leaving an idea completely. I've met a lot of people who've had so many businesses, they didn't work within the first year, so they just shut it down and started with something entirely different. Right? But it doesn't always mean that what you're doing, just because it's not working now, doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It's about shifting your mindset and shifting how you're doing things. So even though event planning services is not the focus in the way I thought it would initially be, I worked that into my community of women in business, where now I'm planning events and workshops for them, right? So I did come back kind of full circle. So you don't have to abandon your ideas entirely, but shift a little bit, test things out. Don't be afraid of that trial and error phase of your business. It really helps you figure out who you are, what you do, and what you need to do to stay on course.
And maybe just a different version of what you thought you were doing, not a whole new idea.
Exactly.
There's another great question from chat. On their social media, the same people are always the ones to interact. So how do we get the silent majority to interact more with us? That is a great question.
My counter question is, are you interacting with those people that you're wanting interactions from? Because a lot of people forget that social media is a two-way street. So you have to seek out your target audience, like their posts, comment on their posts, ask them questions, send them a DM, watch their stories, engage in their polls. They're going to notice the same people are interacting with them, and it's going to increase the likelihood of them coming back to your platform and doing the same for you, right? Because a lot of people wait for people to come to us, but go out and get those people, right? And sometimes it's just a matter of using a different element of the platform, especially with Instagram. It's so dynamic. There's so many ways to interact, whether it's stories, posts, reels, live video. Try something new and see if your audience is more responsive to that versus what you're already doing.
I love the idea of interacting back though, because I mean, the thing I talk about all the time is like answer your comments, reply to them, but even going a step further is like actually being exactly like you said, being an active participant in the community that you want to be a part of, because I mean, that's literally my whole job here at Adobe Express, so I'm incredibly passionate about it, but it is, I think it's like an undersold part of marketing. Like most people think about like making sure the content is good, making sure like what you're pushing out, which is important, but I do think it's not always like so considered to do that part of it.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Make it part of your workflow. I always recommend spending at least 15 minutes a day going on your social media and doing
that's
outward.
Not that much.
It's
like
not that
15
much,
minutes a
right?
day is massive, and you can do it.
You can do so much.
Yeah.
Like set a timer if you need to, put it in your calendar if you need to, and spend that time not responding to comments, but doing your outward engagement and interacting with new people to hopefully get some of those interactions back.
Yes, and we have some agreement in the chat. Laura says so many cool tips and tricks in this session.
I got
Liz
you.
says, yeah, interacting back even on their pages makes a difference. I 100% agree.
Absolutely.
So for those watching who want to follow more of you, I mean, I think they should check out your blog because there's so many good resources, but can you give us the rundown of like where people can follow you after the session, where you exist on the internet?
Absolutely. So we're mostly active on Instagram, so you can follow at Strategic Charm Boutique. That's our website as well. If you're interested in following our community, you can. It's at Hustle and Charm Community on Instagram as well. And personally, you can follow me on TikTok, Charmaine J. I am incorporating more business tips there too.
Awesome. And if anyone is like, I want to work with this person, what are the steps for that?
Shoot me an email, Charmaine at strategicharmboutique.com, or go to our website and all the information is there as well.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming since we've been talking about interacting back with your community, if someone like sends you a DM, you'll be sure to answer them
Absolutely.
back.
It's either me or one of my team members, but we're both in there, so.
Yeah. And like I said, I highly recommend checking out, what was your website again?
strategicharmboutique.com.
There
it's a mouthful.
are so many great resources. I was looking at the blog like, okay, bookmarking this, like so many things I wanted to remember.
Awesome.
Yeah, and if you have questions about Adobe Express, like you can ask Charmaine, you can ask me. I'm at Jordan Danae Ellis all over the internet, and we have so many resources on the Adobe Express and the Adobe Live YouTube channel. You can also check out all of the Max sessions from Adobe Max 2022 on the Adobe Live YouTube channel, so I highly recommend checking that out. It is one of my favorite places to go for resources. So thank you so much to everyone in the chat who has been hanging out with us. Please follow Charmaine for great tips all over the place. Any final words to folks watching?
Again, shoot me any questions you have. Again, DM us anytime. We're always happy to educate, happy to support you in any way that you need it.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great night. And like I said, please subscribe to the Adobe Live YouTube channel for more videos like this. And we will see you later. Bye everyone.
Are you leaving me?